G'day, I'm Mike from Battlefield Accessories, and this is our 28mm Samurai Castle. It's a laser cut model and comes flat pack. It does require a little bit of construction on your part, but hopefully, as you'll see, it's well worth it. The model is designed for wargamers and probably specifically for skirmish wargaming, with each of the parts being removable, containing detailed floors and internal staircases. The roofs of these sections also completely removable. In the following video, I'm going to actually go through the process of building this particular castle. So that'll give you an idea of what you're signing up for. I personally rate the modelling skill needed to put the thing together at pretty low, but you can be the judge of that by having a look. Battlefield Accessories has got a long history of creating resin terrain for wargamers. Our website is www.battlefieldaccessories.com.au. Or if you're in the United States, battlefieldaccessoriesusa.com. Okay, so when your box arrives, you'll see inside it a series of plastic bags. Now each of those bags has the components to make each of the levels. And so what I've done is I've separated them out so as basically can build one bag at a time. So here you have the 5 bags that make up the main building. This is the base level here. First story, second story, the piece which links between the wider section and the upper section, and then finally the top story. Right, you also have a bag for the gatehouse, 2 large internal stairwells, and a bag for the 2 smaller stairwells, and finally a bag with all of the tile sections for the outer wall. 4 wall sections, 2 internal floors for the major sections of the main building, 1 large baseboard for the bottom of the main stone base, and 4 sloped wall sections, plus the outside of the ramp and the ramp deck itself. At every stage during the construction, I'm going to constantly remind you that you should test the fit for all of the pieces before gluing them. And just make sure that you've got all the pieces in the correct place. So for example, I'm going to start here with the base. So I've got the baseboard laid out. I'm then going to take the wall sections. Just while it's laid out flat like this, just check that they all fit snugly into each other. So as you can see, those 3 sides are fitting in really nicely. This one, there isn't a lot of debate about where that's going to go. It's going to sit here over near the gate. Now the best strategy for building up the base is to build up the outside first and then to set the deck inside once you're done. So I've taken the 2 pieces. I know they go together because I've planned it out. What I'm going to do is stand this up so as the grooves are lining in. I've got one side resting flat down on the table, and then just going to gently push from on top. And you'll feel that that will slide in really nicely. You can see that straight away that's holding together. Now at this stage I'm not going to glue that. What I'm going to do is arrange it so each of the corners are in and then glue from the inside. Okay, so I'm just going to keep building these pieces in here. And with this section here, where you've got the line of teeth, the idea is that the wall with the blank section and the grooves for the deck for the ramp in basically slide in. Of all the pieces, this is the one that will have the tightest fit. Again, with it down flat on the board, just a little bit of pressure on top, and it's in place. Final part. And again, I'm doing this one up in the air. I could just quite as easily put it down flat. I'm going to do that now just to make sure it's nice and firm. As you can see, I haven't bothered putting the ramp on yet because I'm going to secure the base in as the next thing. So I have that there. I'm going to pick up my baseboard, and it's obvious because of like that where the ramp's going to go. This piece has got to go in there. So I'm just going to take that. The best way to do this is to start at one side get it to lock in and work your way around. As you lock it in, it'll square up the entire model. Right, and then you can see, perfect. Okay, so it's at this stage we're going to work the front ramp in. So again, using the strategy we used before, I'm going to turn it on to the end, grab this piece, just slot it down. And turn it back over. Again, not working with any glue here, just getting them all positioned in. Now with the ramp stance starts with the narrow end at the bottom and expanding, getting wider as it goes up the length of the wall. Again, this will be a little bit tight to get in, which is good because it's then going to hold the whole model in place. You can hear it locking down there. So it's now done. So there's our base. Now onto the gluing. Okay, now in terms of equipment, there's only 2 bits of equipment you're probably going to need for the whole thing. An old paintbrush, great for cleaning up glue spills, and then just some Aqua Adhere PVA glue. I'm using a Quickset PVA, which I've got from a local hardware supplies here. I quite like this because it tends to go off a little bit quicker, but any normal PVA will work as well. Okay, so I've got the base, it's not glued. What I'm now going to do is invert the whole thing, turn it over. Now, there's a slight slope, and I think we've worked it out at 8 degrees on each of the sides. So what I'm now going to do is take my glue and just put a little run of glue down into each of the corners. Now don't do this on the dining room table because there will be a little bit of glue leaks out the bottom. Now as that glue's running down, I'm just going to take my paintbrush and just to secure that into the corners. Now that'll penetrate into the timber, right, and it will secure the model. Flipping it back over, what I'm going to do is just make sure they haven't got any PVA penetrating through and distorting the detail on the surface of the model. The other thing you'll notice is that there's little gaps left around here. Some of these are for bits and pieces that are going to come in later on. The other option in terms of gluing is to secure the edges and leave the base. Once it's had a moment to dry, you could then peel the base up and take your glue and just put a little bit into each of those joints there. That's another option as well. Of course, possibly the way to do that is to take your baseboard and where you've got the tongues, just run a little bit of glue over those. I'll leave you to decide how best you would like to glue. If you're putting glue onto the actual top surface of this model, just be careful in some of these areas. So as I attach this back on, some of these areas in here need to be left open for pieces that we're going to put in place later on. So just be careful you don't smother it in glue. Okay, so I'm just pushing that down. Again, if you've got something heavy like, a big bag of unpainted figures, you can drop that on the top, right, and that'll just make sure that all of these socket joints are all nice and are pressed down. Okay, now while our baseboard's drying, I'll pull out the gatehouse. So I've grabbed the gatehouse bag, just going to empty out its contents and show you what's in it. Okay, to start with, we have the four wall sections. You can see they've got some details engraved in on those. We then have the cardboard overlays, which you're going to attach over the top of those walls. Now with the gatehouse, these two side sections are different heights. The idea of this one, which is slightly taller, is it's going to overlap the edge of the baseboard and cover up some of the joints that we have. You'll see with these, they generally mirror the engraved timbers underneath. So for example with this one, it's going to sit over the top like that. And again, you can see down in here that the edge joints are actually going to be covered by the cardboard overlay. Now, a strong recommendation with these is if you want to say have your main castle being a light colour and these being dark timber, as lots of Japanese castles are, then I would suggest giving these a paint before you put them onto the model. Much easier. You can hit them with a spray and it'll save you a lot of time or a lot of fiddling later when you're actually building your main model. Okay, so we have the overlays. And again, as I said at the start, when you're constructing, check everything before you glue it. That way you'll avoid making mistakes. Okay, we then have the roof pieces, which are these sections here. You can see the roof sections have got teeth engraved in them. That's to go with these. And you also have a ridge cap piece as well, which is going to, if you like, give some stability to these pieces here. We'll talk more when we actually build this building about how the rib pieces interact with the roof, but just to give you an idea, each of them has got 3 grooves on them, or 3 nodules, right, which line up with the 3 nodules on this section here. The cardboard that make up the flat panels of the roof, and then you'll see at the ends there are teeth. There are 2 flat sections which make up the end sections of the roof. That roof will go on and off and be completely removable. And then the final pieces we have are the corrugated card overlays. Basically, once you've got your roof glued together and it's dried, then you stick the cardboard overlay or the corrugated card overlays on the top of that, and that gives you a really nice texture for painting and things, giving you the simulating the the tiled roofs. Okay, so my base is dry. I've been through and had a look at all the parts for the gatehouse, so now I'm going to put that in. So you can see here's the ramp, right, and here's the spot where the gatehouse is going to go. Now with the side walls, you'll notice that one of them has a single tag, the other one has a double tag. The double tag goes in the main part, the single tag sits in the side here. Now if you try and position it out, you'll see that's the case. So I'm going to start, before I put any glue, making sure that all my pieces fit in the right spots, and so that they go in reasonably easily. Right, and there we can see. Now in terms of gluing, my strategy, you might have your own, but my strategy is to come around with each of the tags and just put a very small amount of glue on each of them. Probably a little bit too much. So I'm going to glue each of the tags. Now, it's at this point that you need to decide whether your model wants to be permanent or whether you want to have the ability to kind of deconstruct it for storage purposes. If you want to have it deconstructible, then I would suggest not gluing the tags that go into the baseboard. In case of this one, I'm going to have it as a permanent setup, so I'm just putting a bit of glue on each of those. In terms of the video, I'm keeping it running at the moment, but once you've seen one of these put together, I'll probably shorten it out for the rest. Pushing those together, letting them drop down. And then that last one in. Now I'm just going to keep it open just so I can show you the last little bit that I would do, like we did with the base. You just want to come around with your paintbrush Just make sure there's not any pools of glue sitting anywhere in there. I'll put the last one in. Again, just give it a quick wipe over. Now, one of the places to absolutely watch is on the edges here, because you will get a little bit of glue coming out. And my recommendation is, once you've got it glued together like this, then wrap an elastic band around it just to hold it together for 10-20 minutes, just while the glue dries. Okay, so just grab an elastic band. Now I'd recommend somewhere towards the top, because the base is basically holding it in place. Right, and if it's going to spread, it's going to spread at the top. So having it nice and snug is a great idea. And then once that's done, just a quick wipe over each of the corners, just to make sure we haven't got any glue pooling. Remembering, of course, we have overlays that are actually going to cover those corners up. So it's not critical in terms of the detail, but it might make a problem if you've got a bubble of glue there. You might have to do some work to remove that for the overlay to sit on properly. Okay, these are the pieces for the first level of the main tower building. I'm just going to quickly talk you through the pieces that are here. You've got the 4 wall sections like we had for the gatehouse. You've then got the cardboard overlays which go on them. Now again, because this piece is on the bottom level, these have different heights to them. The ones that are slightly longer are designed to go around the outside of the castle. The ones that are slightly shorter go on the inside. Has these pieces here which are for supporting the roof tiles. It's got 2 window frames for the section with the door in it, and then it has these very small corner pegs. And if you look around here, you'll see little holes in the corner which those pegs lock into. Now you'll see those again when I show you how to construct the roof, but don't lose those 4 pegs because they're kind of important. And then of course we have the 4 tile sections here that go along with these 4 roof supports. In terms of the texture, there is the 3 levels of the main tower. Each have a different pattern on the actual timber section, and so what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you those now. Okay, so here's a close-up view of the 3 levels of the main tower. This level here is the base level, and it's got timber engraved all the way up the height, so you can see the lines running all the way up. And of course it has the corner joint for the roofing to attach to. The second level has timber work inscribed only halfway up, and it also has the corners on it. The third level has timber scribed, but it has no corner pieces on it, or no corner triangles. That's because the roof for the section actually is attached to the smaller level above. So in terms of this, full timber for the first level, half timber with triangle corners for the next level above, and then finally the top level of the wide bit of the tower, timber and no corner triangles. These are the 2 floor sections you get, and they form the base for each of the levels of the main tower. The cuts in them are in 2 different places. So the one that has the cut in the center is the level for is the floor for the first level of the tower, and the one that has the cut over to the side is the floor for the level above that. It doesn't actually matter if you install them the other way around, it just affects the position of the stairwell. Basically both of them are cut to the same template, so the walls will interchange on either of those. But if you want to put it together as designed, this is the floor of the first level, this is the floor of the second level. Of course the floor for the ground level is already engraved onto the baseboard of the stone base. Now, as promised with the gatehouse video, I'm not going to make you watch every single step of this, but just a couple of notes about the ground level. So I've got my 4 pieces out as I showed you before. There's 2 long sides and 2 short sides, obviously. The door is on the long side and is designed to go on the inside of the courtyard. So it's going to sit in here like this. Remember, of course, that I'm going to position these things out, check that I've got them in the right spot right before I apply any glue. And you can hear them locking in, nice snug fit. Now again, now that I've checked that they're all going to go together correctly, I'm going to peel them off and put some glue on them like I did with the baseboard. Okay, so I've glued up all my pieces. I'm just getting my brush, remembering just to get rid of any bubbles of glue that have been left behind. Now the reason I'm just filming this last little bit is I just want to point out these little holes here. So you can see I've got the wedge for the corner and then a little hole that's remaining. These are for our little corner wedges. Now those corner wedges are going to be the roof supports. And so once we've got the walls put together, I'm going to suggest we then put our rubber band around it. And again, I'm just carefully positioning it so as the rubber band hasn't slipped down into any of the corners. Right, great. So it's holding the whole thing together now. And so what I'm now going to do is get a tiny little bit of glue. And this is where my paintbrush is going to come in handy. So a little bit of glue into the corner there. And then take my corner wedge and just lock it into place. Now that's going to give us the support for the roofs that are going to be added on later on. Okay, so make sure you do all 4 of those now so they're nice and dry before you come to put your roof on. Right, so I've got the gatehouse and the first or the ground floor drying. So I've now got all my pieces out for the first story. And again, just reiterating this again, just going to come along and check that all of my walls are in the right spots. Now, so I'm laying them out reversed side up because remember these are going to fold up and you want your engraved side on the outside. So they're going to sit like that. Because it's the first level above the ground, I've got the board with the centre cut. Right, so again, I'll check that they are going to position correctly. I'm going to go and put a little dab of glue on each, fold them up, put a rubber band in them to hold them in place, and stick all the corners on like we did for the ground floor. Now just another note with this one, you can, if you want, on the long sides, put a little run of glue on there, that'll help secure the whole thing together. But again, remember, the more glue you put on, the more potential there is for glue to seep out through the joints, and so a little bit more, you need to do a little bit more work in terms of just checking out that not too much is getting on the surface of your model. Again, paintbrush, do a bit of a wipe over in the corners and on the sides, and you're good to go. Now, because this level's freestanding, I'm going to suggest that 2 rubber bands go on. That way you can have one at the top holding the top together and another at the bottom holding, just squeezing the walls into the base. And don't forget, just a quick wipe over on the reverse side to make sure you're not leaving any glue behind, especially where your rubber bands are. Okay, this part is probably the most complex part in the entire castle. This is the transition layer between the wide lower section of the tower and the narrow section at the top. In essence, it's got 4 walls and a base. It also has these corner wedges which basically slot into these pieces here to support the lower roof. And then it also has these smaller pieces which lock into the top here to support the upper roof, or the narrower section. Okay, so we're going to start, as always, by positioning these pieces around the corner. Now you'll notice that on these end sections here and here, there's no groove at the bottom because this actually slots in halfway up the level. So, like we've been doing in the past, I'm going to grab a bit of glue. I'm going to glue up on each of the tabs. In this case, I'm going to run a little bit of glue in line with that slot. And a very important note here, I'll show you on this piece here. What you'll notice, that piece there, which has been burnt through, hasn't actually cleared the model, so I'm just going to push that out. To get my model together with that piece still in, it's not going to be impossible to fix, but it's going to be a pain. So again, looking for all of these, just to make sure they're all clear, so as I can then lock my next pieces in. Okay, so we've done that. So, I'm going to take this end, stand it up. It's locked in. I'm going to work this piece into that there. Tighten the whole things together. Now again, as we've done with the other sections, I'm going to give it a quick wipe over and put an elastic band around it just to hold it all into place. So I've got my rubber bands in place, helping hold together. Now I'm going to just put my corner pieces in. Now I should have made this note before. The difference between these corner pieces and the other corner pieces that are in the kit is these ones all have 2 nodules on them for attaching the roof. So that's the way you can tell the difference between the lower sections and this upper section. So, spot of glue, the easiest on the inside of this. And I'll just do one corner just to show you how it goes. So I'm just mirroring the other corner that I see there, so I've now got those 2. And then same with the one below. Put glue on that. Now these corner sections are all going to be hidden behind the, underneath the roof, so they're not critical in terms of how neat you are with the glue. But you can see, that's now in place, ready to go. So I'm going to turn off the camera and do the rest of the corners now. Okay, so I finished gluing the corners in. I'll just give that a rotation so you can see how it looks. So as you're putting yours together, you can make sure that it looks the same. So now we've finished the base construction of each section, and again, this is the upper story. It's the same as putting the lower stories together, so I didn't film that. So you can see it going, still got its rubber bands on to seal it. The first level of the tower is attached to the baseboard. Here's the second level. The third level, so it's got no corners on it. And to put this into perspective, this piece here sits on top of this piece, such like that. Okay, and this of course is covered, so you get that sloping up to the tower above effect. Okay, so all the main timber parts of the buildings are constructed, and we're now on to working with the overlays. Now with the overlays, they're engraved on one side. So if you look here, you can see a tiny little engraved mark that gives you the effect that there's beams of timber. If I flip them over, right, they're straight card with no cut. So when you're looking at it trying to decide which side's which, the side that has the little engraved on it is the side that goes out, the side that you want to see. For some of the pieces, for example, the gatehouse surround, it's very obvious which is the front side. You know, there's one obviously with the timber engraving on it. Right, for other pieces like the window frames, it can be a little bit trickier. What I'd advise, of course, is to get all of the pieces out, lay them out, check if there's any differences between them. There's a couple of subtle differences from time to time. It'll be obvious that there's only sort of one or two places they can go, and it will make sense once you've got them. So I've got my gatehouse here, and following standard practice, I'm going to take each of the pieces, lay them out over where they're supposed to go. Now with the gatehouse, there's two of these corner bits. We want the longer one because what it's going to do is sit down and cover up the pegs from the baseboard. Of course, I've got another one for the other side, and of course a corner surround for the other side. Okay, so now I've got those. I'm going to get my paintbrush with some PVA. I'm just going to have a little coat around with PVA on the back of these just to get them in place. I'll get the glue in place, that is. Now again, strong advice is if you're going to paint these a different colour to the rest of your model, then I would paint them prior to gluing them. Now, not that this is all about painting techniques, and I'm sure other people have some other ideas. I've found when I'm painting card to use, if I'm using an acrylic, then to use significantly watered down. The card will absorb quite a lot of water, so you'll find that you use a lot of paint if you just use it sort of straight out of the tube. A little bit of water in there is going to make a big difference. So I've got glue on that. Then I'm going to come along, position it out, and just push it in on so it makes a good seal. Again, with my brush or just with an eye at the moment, just making sure I haven't got too much glue hanging out over the side. If I have, just wipe that off. Now the design of these pieces is so as on where we've got a long wall, right, it's flush on the edges, and where we have a short wall, there'll be a slight amount of overlap to attempt to cover this corner joint. If you've got some closed pegs, it's always a bit useful because you can clamp one of those on these corners, because they will tend to, the surface tension with the glue interacting with the cardboard, they may peel away a little bit, so holding them on, especially while the glue just takes in that first couple of minutes, can be really useful, and a closed peg can be a real help there. Right, so as you can see, I've now got the timber surrounds on the gatehouse ready to go. Okay, now I'm not going to take you through putting on the timber surrounds for every single piece. However, I just want to show you the doorway one. This is the same for all of these pieces that have this lowered roof. The actual pieces that go on are designed to fit underneath these corners, and where there's a straight piece like there is here, not to go to the whole way to the top. That's because the roof piece is going to come in, and you're going to not see that because it'll be covered, and it just means that we don't get any interaction between the top lip here and these and the actual roof themselves. So again, case of just putting a bit of glue on these, getting them into place, and sticking them on. This is the only section that's got two freestanding pieces. They're the two window frames, and they're designed just to stick around these two windows here. All the others are fixed in, so it's a single piece that goes onto the side. Okay, still on the base section, you can see that I've added the timber surround around the door. Now with this section, there is variation between the height of these pieces. The ones on the outside, so on this wall here and on the back wall here, so these two walls here are designed so as the length of them covers that bottom strip across there. The only place that'll matter is the two pieces with two windows. Right, and if I stack them up on top of each other, you can see that one of them is slightly longer than the other. The longer one is for the outside. If I put it into place, you can see how it covers up. We put the other one in there. It'll fit to a point, but it'll leave this exposed on the bottom and it won't look right. And of course the other piece won't fit on the other side. Okay, so I finished putting all of those side pieces on. I'll just give it a quick spin so you get a sense of how yours should look. You can see the gatehouse in the background there too. Go over the gatehouse, and then around the door there. So it's got all the timber surrounds. Now putting the timber surrounds on for the rest of the castle is exactly the same. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push ahead and put those on and then just give you a video of what they look like when they're completed. Let's talk about putting these roofs together. Now, these are the roof supports, depending on if they've got 1 or 2 holes in them, depending on where they go. Now again, if you've kept all your pieces together from each bag, the bag that goes with this section, these are the pieces for it. Now there are 2 lengths, there's a short one and a slightly longer one. The idea is that you clip and clip, simply like that on the 2 clips. So if I show you a little bit of pressure, you'll find that they clip in quite nicely. You might have heard that little clip there. Okay, so those 2 pieces are now in place. Get the longer one, and again same strategy, so just firmly push it down, if you listen to the clip. Right, they're now in place. Now once we've glued those, so we'll go around and position them out, check that they fit, pull them off, put some glue down, put them in place, and then the final part of it is going to be then to glue the tile section over the top of those. Now my strategy for gluing these pieces on is to get my glue and paint it on the gaps. Try and avoid going onto the top of the nodule, because that's the bit that's going to actually stick through the card, so you want either side of that. Now, if it doesn't seem to want to go because there might be a slight alignment problem, what I've found is just pull firmly on the end, or gently on the end, and then just ease it over the hole. Right, and you see that's locked down beautifully. Do the same with the other end just to make sure it's nice and firm. Great. You'll tell they're down firmly because they're basically, it's level with the surface. Gentle pull and push it down into place. Now, a critical bit with this is going to be to let this dry before you go and attach the corrugated card to the top, because the corrugated card, as it dries, will put a little bit of pressure on the card, and you don't want it pulling away from the supports underneath. So definitely let this dry thoroughly before trying to put your roofing section on. There we go. One step and she's done. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the roof section for what we'll call the transition section, which is where it goes from the wide to the small. Now there are a lot of roof pieces here. There are these larger pieces which are going to form the base level of the roof, and then there's these thinner pieces which are the top level. So for example, if you've got this piece here and you see I've got the cardboard surround on that, this is where the narrow ones are going to go, and this is where the wider ones are going to go. One of the things you're going to have to come to terms with is that the wider section actually hangs over the depth of this. So if you put these on and then put it down to rest, they're going to pop off. So my suggestion is have something handy where you can rest this on while it's drying. And I suggest a couple of pots of Battlefield Accessories basic mixture, available from the Battlefield Accessories website. Very useful. So I'm going to put those up there, which will give me a little bit of height. So a liberal amount of glue on here. I've just hit one of my traps for young players. I've put this timber surround on here already. Might I suggest that you put the roof section on before you put the timber surrounding, because if that slips a little bit low, it affects your ability to put the roof in. This one I've just had to do a quick trim to make it fit. So again, coming along, pushing those down. Again, sidewards pull, and there they are, locked down. And then of course I'm going to turn and continue the process. Okay, so you can see one flying saucer. Now, what I was talking about before, is I'm going to come along with my glue here. I'm just going to run a little bit more glue, like we did with the baseboard earlier on, just down each of those joints, just to make sure it's a really good solid joint. There's all sorts of other things you might decide to do. You might want to run a bit of glue between these two sides and put maybe a piece of bamboo in there just to hold it in place. It's not needed, but you know, this is probably the weak point of the model, because it's going to get knocked and bumped. So having something a little bit more structural underneath it, yeah, it might be useful to do. As I said, with mine, I'm not going to bother. But yours, you might decide to. So just paint it all that in. I'm going to leave that to drip dry over my board. Now, we'll just try and do these top corners here. So again, a bit of glue. Of course, I've already pre-checked that they're the right length and they're going to fit. Let's hope that they actually do. Right, so nice. Then just gently stretch it out and let it fall over the corners. Beautiful. So, to give you an idea, completed midsection looks like that. Again, reminder, put it on something so as the bottom of these lower roof sections are not resting on the ground. That'll stop them from popping off while they dry. Okay, so here's the roof on the second level. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do on this one, along with some additional glue in the corners, is I'm going to put a little bit of glue down where the roof meets the wall, just in the center. You can see it just in there like that, and that'll just give it a little bit of additional strength in the middle. Okay, second level, all cardboard attached, waiting for its corrugated card roof tiles to finish it off. Third level, cardboard surrounds only, no roof section on that one. Transition section. And finally, top of the tower. So, our castle after construction of each of the major components. Roof. First level. Second level. Third level. Tower top. And of course, roof. Now we'll just put the walls on and then the tiles and we're done. Now, I know that I've probably said the last bit a whole bunch of times, but we're getting very close to the last bit. We've got this, it's had a chance to dry, so it's all nice and rock solid. Now what I'm going to do is place the tile sections over. So I have two lengths of tile sections, a long one and a short one obviously. So the short one's going to lock over there. Long one clearly is going to go there. Again, these should be all precision cut exactly to size, but you might want to just have a quick position of them to make sure that there's not too much overhang. We want a tiny little bit of overhang on either end. It'll cause a little bit of bunching and give it just a slight lift, which will make it look really good. In terms of glue, just going to come along, put a fair amount of glue on. I'm going to spread it as evenly as I can over the surface. Again, you want a reasonable amount of glue. You don't want too much that's going to cause the whole thing to go soggy and warp, but you want good surface contact with the corrugated tiles coming over the top. Now this material is corrugated on one side and completely flat on the other, so you'll get a really good bond, but you just want to make sure you've got enough glue, and then press it down relatively firmly. Now my suggestion is, while that's still a little bit free, I'm going to work up the next side. So hopefully you get a sense by the speed which I'm working, the speed you can do this at. You might want to take it a little bit slower. It's not actually a race. But just for these tiles, I like to get them not let it dry, because if I do need to slide it around a little bit, and having it wet is going to be the really good opportunity to do that. One of the things to keep an eye on is that if you get too much glue in there, the tiles will actually slide, and you wouldn't want to put it on and then come back 45 minutes later and find that it's slid halfway off your model. So it might be better to do them when you've got a little bit of time to hang around and just check that they're drying correctly. Right, and there you have the completed roof tiles. Now up to the roof section. So there are two sections like this, one for the gatehouse and one for the absolute top of the tower. These spine pieces have little nodules along them, and they correspond to these little nodules on the actual roof pieces, so you can see them like that. Now one of the tricks with this is to make sure that the two lots are lining up, so you can see that they're not lining up at the moment, so one of them needs to be flipped over, so when I run them together they line up. That will ensure that the spines connect correctly. So what in essence we're going to do is connect the spines to this side and then also connect them to the other side. Now the process for this, again, is pretty straightforward. Take one spine piece, glue along the top ridge of it, right, avoiding the tops of the nodules, and then take it and push it gently down into the surface, and it'll click into place, and it's just going to sit up like that. And so the strategy is do one side, let it dry, then do the other side. There's also a groove in the top of this. That's for later on when we put our ridge cap piece, it'll actually lock down into that piece and give the whole roof a lot of solid structure, plus give you something to pick it up with when you're taking it off. Now this is the roof of the tower. You can see that I've connected one set of spines to it. I've let that dry. Now I'm going to just put the other side in. So in this case, what I'm going to do is get the glue and run it down each of the 3 separate spines. Then just checking that the roof's lining up correctly so the holes are in the right spot. Start at one end. Clip them down into place. Right, now that whole roof is now secured. So I'm now going to let that dry. Again with this, like we've done with lots of sections, a little bit of extra glue along the sides, doesn't go astray, just helps hold the whole thing securely in place. Okay, so at the final stage of this roof, you've got a short piece like this, right, and the actual roof. The idea is that you're going to take this short piece, lock it in there, right, and then bring it up. Oops. So as the teeth lock into that section there. Now, it's going to require a little bit of flexing that piece to get it in place, but it'll sit down nice and snugly in there. Now once you've got it in, my advice is get your paintbrush with your glue, bunch of glue around the top like that, on both ends, right, and then similarly on the underside. What you're wanting to do there is build up a skin so as the glue is going to help secure that piece in. The teeth will help, but the glue will actually bind it in. And then of course similar at the other end. One roof just waiting for its tiles. Now the other thing you can do at one stage, once the spines are glued in place, is take your ridge cap and put that in. Easy enough. A little bit of glue down inside of each of the spines. Now I'm being fairly free and easy with the glue here, because we're remembering that across the top of this we're going to have roofing tiles anyway, so you're going to not see any of the glue that I leave there. Right. Now I found the best way to do this is to push one end in, and then just basically work the next spine underneath. Now I've got my thumb underneath, or fingers underneath the spine, just putting some resistance as the actual piece drops down into place. Right, roof with a nice decorating piece and also a very nice handle. Okay, so there's 2 pieces that are similar to this, so I'm only going to show you one of these. I'm putting the roof tiles on one of the freestanding roofs. So I've got these pieces with the corners, right, and these little pieces. Right, now, it's exactly, they mirror the cardboard pieces underneath them. The only advice would be to start with the small sections first. So these ones here, so again I'm just coming along. Now I've been a fraction impatient with this, these haven't entirely dried from when I stuck them on before. In essence I'm putting the castle together in one quick, or in one night. Ideally you'd probably do it over a couple of nights or days. Okay, so I'm just grabbing that and sliding it in place. The goal here is to get it somewhere in the middle. And flip around to the other end. And then the main body. Now glue right out to the edges is the critical point here, because that's where the corrugated card, if it's going to flex up, it's going to flex up on those edges. Or at least if it flexes up in the middle, you're probably not even going to notice it. But if it flexes on there, if it comes adrift on the edges, it'll be very obvious. Also easy to repair, just peel it up and stick a little bit of extra glue under there. But we like to only have to do things once. Okay. Take my piece of card. Again, I'm just going to squeeze it down at each of the corners and the edges, just to try and get a really firm grab. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, while I'm monitoring the other pieces of card I've glued down, I'm going to especially monitor these bigger pieces because they're the ones that are going to come loose, if anything's going to come loose. Okay, so the final bit with the baseboard is the external walls. Now there are 4 external wall pieces. Here's the long one. Better put it up the right way. Okay, and you can see it's got a little corner chip in it. The wall that corresponds to that, it's also got an equivalent chip. Okay, now one of the walls, that long one there, there's no choice about where it goes, it's clearly longest. The others, you need to position them out just to make sure you've got them in the right spot. They've got grooves that lock into the bottom of the base, which means that they can only go into one place. But you should check just to make sure you've got them all in the right spot. Okay, so first step with the side walls is get your PVA glue, like we're getting good at now. Put a line of PVA all the way down the side where the wall's going to go. Now the wall's going to cover that top join there, so that's a good indication for where you should go. And again, I'm just going to run a little bit of glue down the side of that to help the two walls go together. Now again, if you were looking to have a deconstructible fort that you can pack down to its absolute smallest components, you could elect not to glue, well, clearly the buildings to the base, but you could also elect to not glue the walls to the base. My advice would probably be it's better to have the walls glued down, but again, you can decide for yourself. Okay, so I've run my glue across the sides, then put my walls in place. This one's bowing out a fraction there that you might see, so what I'm going to do is just put a bit of weight on that. I'll put something leaning up against it for 10 minutes just to let it dry. Okay, the final bit for the base of the tower is the tiles, or the roofing sections for the side walls. You've got all of these pieces that will come together. Basically they're all keyed so as they go together in pairs. The long one is obvious. If you lie them all out flat, you'll see that they then go in pairs of decreasing size. Just like that. Now if you see with this one here, you can see that end, you might not be able to see. The keying's similar, but it's not quite the same length. Right. So I need to swap that one out. So arrange them in their pairs. If you put them in height order, then these last two are approximately the same size. Okay, if you have them in height order, then the long one and the longer of the two short ones go together, and these two go together. Like with all parts of the castle, before you glue anything, check out the pieces, how they sit on the actual castle to make sure they fit. I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, so I've arranged my edge pieces. I'll start with the longest one. So this is going to sit over the top of here and fold down. So if you like, folds at 90 degrees. And this point's going to end up in the corner. So clearly this one is backwards. So what I'm going to do is flip it over. Again, this is much better when it's glued together. So it's going to sit in there like that. So the point's running out to the corner. So my next step is going to be to take this, glue it so as it's at a 90-degree angle like it is at the moment. Let that dry. Then I'm going to glue that to the top of the wall. I'll take my other pair, and again, similar thing. If I look at it here, it actually needs to be around the other way, so I'm going to flip it over. And so it's going to sit like that. So the corner of this and the corner of that longer section are going to come together and provide the support for my tiles. So applying glue to these, one of the tricks I've learnt is put your fingers either side, just to squeeze the two halves together, and then I'm just going to run glue up the middle. Then I'm going to fold it up so it's sitting as close to a right angle as I can get it. Of course, what I've done is I've doubled and triple checked that this corner is pointing the way that I need it to be pointing. If in the end it's not, I can pull it to pieces and then re-glue it the other way. It's just better to get it right the first time. So the last two small sections with the outside walls, now need to take the right angle pieces that we've glued together and then attach them to the top of the walls. So my suggestion here is grab your piece, bit of glue down the valley, and then you just place it up on top of the wall. Now the critical bit here is this point here is where the tiles are going to be stuck. So it doesn't actually matter too much where this is, as long as it's going to provide a nice firm foundation for the tiles that are sitting underneath it. And so in this way, what I would suggest you do is do both of the sections and then push them up so as you get them somewhere in the corner. Now they're not designed, like if you look at this, they're not designed to touch completely snugly. They're just there to give you that framework. So you want them sitting so as the center point of the V is over the center of the wall. Yeah, we're not too concerned about what's happening under here because we're not going to see it because it's covered. Okay, so I've laid out the last bit of the black strips. You see I've got 2 long ones, 2 medium, and then 4 short ones. The 4 short ones are for the 2 shorter lengths. The medium one and the long one have an obvious place where they fit. Just like we've done the other deckings, the other roof, sorry. Grab my piece, going to come along, put some glue on it, catch that drip. Again, what I'm doing here is the design is get a good supply of glue on it, put the tiles on, and then just watch for any bowing. Watch any drips as they'll make a mess of your stonework. Now you might see that moving around a little bit. That's because I haven't let it dry thoroughly. Of course, when you're doing yours, you'll let it dry completely. Now with these 2 long pieces, one of them is slightly longer than the other. It's the outside wall. Again, the assumption is that you try them out before you put glue all over them. In terms of positioning on those, I'd err to have them on the high side because that gives you a nice little peak. If they're a little bit low on the bottom here, you're not going to notice that, but you will notice them if they're a little bit low on the top. Notice also on this section here that permanently fixed roof line is going to actually cover up some of your tile, so a little bit of gap down there is not going to cause you any problems at all. Again, I'm making sure that the peak is covering up any cardboard I've got hanging out from underneath. Okay, so that's the end of that. Okay, there are two types of stairwells in the castle. There's this one which I'm going to call the larger stair, which I'll show you how to put together. It consists of 7 steps, a landing at the top, sorry, landing for the middle. I'm just going to go through and make sure I've punched out all of these holes. Okay, so the stairwell consists of a bottom section like this, which then turns around and comes back up to the top. So the best way to do this is to take your treads, push them down into place. Again, I'm not using any glue here. Like we've done with a lot of the other sections in the castle so far, is I'll put the glue in at the end from the underneath. Now this bit requires a little bit of careful alignment just to get the treads lined up so as the holes are lining up with the bits. You see that locks down. It's fairly snug, but you can see now we have those stairs in. You're going to take this next section. Before I put it in, better put the treads in. And again, just going to push the treads down. If you're finding them problematic or you want to make it a little bit easier, running a little bit of sand over the top of those two bits will actually make them a little bit looser. I haven't felt the need, I think they're going okay, but it might be something you should choose to do. So I should mention one trick with this. You've got to put the two pieces together, put them in on one side and then slide this over the top. It's better to put them, when you're working, to put them like this, stand them like this in the unburnt side, and then have the burnt side sliding in. These holes are just a fraction wider where the lasers hit the surface of the material, so it just gives a little bit more guidance for the actual pieces to drop in. Again, just a little bit of finessing to get them lined up. And you'll see it's now on. Okay, so I'm going to lock these two pieces together. Flip it across, put the top deck in, top landing in. Don't forget to put my bottom stair in. Like that. And then of course I've got the back of the whole staircase sitting like that. Now at this stage what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my trusty paintbrush with its glue and just glue around the joins there. All I'm trying to do there is just put a little bit of glue to hold it in place. Right, the second type of stair is for the upper levels of the tower, so it doesn't occupy much floor space. In the bag there's 2 sets of this stairwell, so it consists simply of 2 side runners and a bunch of rungs. Do that up where you can see it. Okay, so take the side run. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this burnt side over the top. So I'm going to push these in like this. Now don't need to bother with the bottom one there or the top one because they can both slide in from either the bottom or the rear. Right, there we go, beautiful. Slide the top rung in. Then a little bit of glue, again just at the back, just to hold each of those rungs in place. Like one stairwell, put it away to dry. Okay, so the final bit of the castle is stairwells. The first level is designed so the stairwell sits something like this. A little bit of positioning. The second level, something like that. And the third level, something like that. And then the fourth, something like that. Now, there's really a range of options in terms of securing those in, because you could easily fix them in with glue. My preference is to keep them loose, and that gives you more flexibility in what you can do with the space. You can use them if you want, but you don't need to. So that's it for how to build the Battlefield Accessories 28mm Samurai Castle. Please feel free to send me any questions, mike.parker@tpg.com.au. It's currently not available on the Battlefield Accessories website. That's where our resin range is being run from. If you're interested in one, please send me an email and we'll get in touch. Thanks, bye.